Hello, thanks for joining us here on Goals to Go. I'm Vic Johnson. I'm here today with the person described as the real-life Indiana Jones. I'm thrilled to introduce you to him today, to John Goddard, also known as the world's #1 goal achiever. Welcome, John. Thank you for being with us.
I'm happy to be here.
John, on the last show we did, we talked about why. On this show, I want to talk about how. Because you created a list as a young person of 127 different goals, and then along the way you've added another 400. You've accomplished in your life over 560 goals, and I mean major goals. You've been to the top of most of the world's major peaks. You've been down the world's major rivers. You've retraced Marco Polo's steps. You've been to the Great Wall, and I could go on and on and on. As a person who's been, just studied very diverse people in terms of seeking goals, how in the world, John, did you handle the fear of failure and the fear of rejection? Those goals were so big.
Well, we all have fears, but when you analyze it, fear can be a positive experience in your life. It saved my life because it made me more alert to danger and possible hazards and problems. But some people let fear obsess them or overwhelm them to a point they're not effective in anything. Fear leads to panic, and for an explorer, panic can be deadly. Whether you're underwater in a difficult situation, whether you're charging hippo or running unknown rapids, that can really be terrible. But when you accept the fact that you're going to try a lot of things, you're going to fail at some of them. But there's no reason to let that stop you from trying other avenues of approach. I tried for years to get permission and clearance to fly jet fighters. And I was always told I was no longer in the Air Force where I'd learned to fly. I was just a civilian, and every day, every week, every month, the Air Force gets dozens of requests just to go up in the pattern in a jet fighter or bomber and just experience that in a military aircraft. But I never accepted no, and I have always found if one thing doesn't work, then you try something else. And out of 10 tries, I finally hit it and achieved flying 17 different jet fighters and bombers.
So you don't see failure as or the fear of failure, you don't see that as a stoplight, but more as a caution light, that you better look ahead, there might be something coming up.
And the fact that you have failed indicates action. At least you've tried. Some people are so fearful they don't even make the first attempt, and they settled for a very boring life.
Right. Well, and I know in some of your key goals, the very big goals in your life, there was a lot of coverage, media coverage. People knew in advance you were going to attempt it. Weren't you afraid? Was there ever the time that you ever thought, boy, I'm going to go out and make a fool out of myself, or
Vic, that was never really a factor. I never even considered that. I did goals not to get my name in the paper or get any attention, any adulation or admiration. I did it because they were fun. The inner rewards were the main motivation, and to satiate curiosity about the world and everything in it, and the desire to fulfill all my boyhood dreams.
And so when the naysayers were there telling you that it was a foolhardy to go down the Nile, you turned it off. Did you ever go down at bed at night going, maybe they're right?
No, because from the time I was a kid, I had people tell me what I was doing was impossible and dangerous and better not do it. If I had listened to them, I would have missed half the greatest experiences of my life.
Fantastic. Well, when we come back, we're going to learn the goal-setting process used by the world's #1 goal achiever. Keep it right here on TSTN, the network for goal achievers. We'll be right back. We're back with more goals to go. John, you've got so many goals. In fact, you've got more goals than 10 people could do in a lifetime. And so obviously you had to use a process. There had to be some goal-setting process, which became a goal-achieving process. I know that our viewers would love to know what steps you took. So, you know, we know that when you see something, you read something, you get a dream or an idea that you want to do it.
Yes.
And then for John Goddard, that means it's probably going to get done. So take us from that point where you become, where you fall in love with the dream. Take us to the point where you reach that dream. Take us through those steps. What would they be?
I have a simple formula. There's no magic formula, but the thing that has worked for me for over 500 goals is I have a little formula: pick, plan, prepare, and persist. Simple. You pick a goal, you write it down. That's the first major step. That goal written down is a contract with yourself that you're going to do it, a commitment. The second, you develop a plan to do it. Most people don't plan, they don't budget, they don't save money to fulfill their goals. There's no sincere belief that they can do different goals that are unusual and challenging. The next, you prepare, whether it's getting in shape to do a physically demanding thing, and then you stick with the goal. You don't let fear of failure, or you don't let failure itself stop you. You always plan ahead. You anticipate obstacles and difficulties, and you work through to success with them.
So you got this simple process that you use. When you're writing them down, are you just writing a goal, one sentence, or are you going into some great detail? You know, what do you do there?
Well, I have categories.
Okay.
You have to have goals recognizing that we have three aspects to a human being. We have the mind, body, and spirit, and emotions, and cultural, and the goals direct development in each area. I wrote goals of stimulation through reading great literature, attending great operas, and even ballets and symphonic concerts and recitals. I wrote goals that would stimulate my brain by immersing in the wisdom of past writers, from Plato and Socrates to even Thoreau and even Da Vinci and some of the geniuses of the past. You know, we have access to knowledge that's incomprehensible of what was available just 20 years ago.
Right.
And by developing relationships where you want closer and more intimate and more sincere, honest relationships. And if someone is your life that drags you down, it's a negative influence, it's time to sever that relationship, I think.
And I know something that you've mentioned to me before, you do a tremendous amount of research on your goal. I mean, once you've decided I'm going to do it, you fall in love with it.
Yes, you really do. It's a passion, but it's so enjoyable to have a color-coded file system of every subject you can think of, from astronomy to zoological research, and to tap into that. And it makes you aware of so many things. It's like learning a new word. Within 2 or 3 days, you've heard it again. You've never been aware of it before.
Right. So that's, and I know that you use visualization. I know that that's been very important to you, but the process that you go through is really a pretty simple process.
It's simple and effective.
Well, John, I know that in all this that you've done with goals, I know that you've had some huge ones, you've had some big ones, but there was one that was kind of unexpected about 25 years ago that came along, and you had no idea it was going to come up in your life, and you took it on, and you were victorious. And I'd like for you to share that with us when we come back.
Which of the 10 are you referring to?
His adventures have brought him near death 42 times. But when we come back, we're going to find out about the one that was bigger than all of those, when the world's #1 goal achiever took on the Big C. We'll be back with more goals to go in just a minute. Welcome back to Goals to Go. I'm Vic Johnson. I'm here with the #1 goal-achieving guru, John Goddard. John, you've accomplished so many goals, and as I read your story, they were such an inspiration to me. I mean, as I've shared with you, I went out and built my own life list, which I've been living by, which has brought tremendous texture to my life, and I've been teaching that to many other people as a result of your influence. But there was one part of your story that I wasn't aware of, and I was so awed by what you had accomplished, but this really the icing on the cake. And it was the biggest goal you've had to achieve yet, and that was your battle, I guess, in 1983 with prostate cancer.
That's right. It was something that snuck up on me. I had no control over it. It hit me. And, to feel healthy and energetic and doing athletic things all the time, to have a diagnosis that I had 1 chance in 10 of living 5 years. And I thought, well, at least I have a chance. But I learned a lot from that. And I learned that in overcoming the cancer, I became a much stronger person, one that had more humility, more gratitude for the gift of health and life and friends and family. But the thing that helped me more than anything else was I became involved in the treatment. I wasn't content with just going and getting the shot, showing up at the lab, and hoping that I would be getting treatment that would kill all the cancers and I would survive. But I studied up. I did research on the actual effects of the cytoxin and the radiation, and I augmented that by becoming an active participant, so that when I felt the poison going in my bloodstream, I could picture cancer cells being magnetized by an electronic grid, and as they approached it, they were atomized, they were destroyed, and I'd see little flashes of light and little bits of debris, and I pictured that vividly. And then I avoided the pit of victimization, of having pity parties with friends. Oh, I'm so sick, and why did it have to happen to me, and all that nonsense. And I'd actually get angry with myself if I felt myself preferring bed to activity, because it was so comfortable just to lie there feeling miserable. And if I got up, I was even more miserable. And I thought, are you being a man about this? Are you living up to what your credo is, that a true man overcomes fear and pain and discomfort and does something with the life left in him? So I boned up. I read everything I could get my hands on about metastasized or distant cancer with distant metastasis, they called it, where lymph glands and bone were involved too, and the next step was the kidneys and, abdominal organs. And I actually developed a relationship with the lab technicians. Clara in the chemotherapy was a charming Texas girl. And I love Texas because I've spent so much time here and in the South. And I got to know her personal problems and worries. And I was concerned about the relationship she had with her boyfriend. They were talking marriage, and I didn't think he was ready and worthy of her. So my focus was on that enjoyable relationship. So I didn't focus on the discomfort and pain of the process, even upstairs in radiation. There were 2 charming radiologists there that I bonded with. Mabel, who had come from Hong Kong, had gotten a degree at USC, and I would learn about their philosophy, their activities, and we just became close friends. So going to the clinic was a positive, enjoyable thing. And then I made commitments. 11 days after my last surgery, I had a lecture to give. Well, I didn't feel like sitting up in bed, let alone getting dressed and shaving and getting out and doing it. And it took all the willpower I had to get in the car and head for the lecture. But as I drove toward it and got out on the stage, boy, voila, I was rejuvenated. And I learned that on the Nile, where I had 5 tropical diseases at one time and still functioned. Still paddled dawn to dusk over, desolate deserts and intense heat with very short food rations and still function. Because each one of us has potential strength in mind, body, and spirit that we almost never touch.
Phenomenal. Well, I know that, one of the things you did is you always stayed focused on the future, that you never looked at the present.
Right.
You always, I mean, you never quit going after any of the goals thinking, well, I'm not going to be here anyway.
No, my future was clearly defined, and that involved going on with my lifestyle of having wonderful travel, wonderful new experiences, getting to know my grandchildren more and spending time with the family more, taking my wife to now what has amounted to 28 different countries from Jordan to Thailand. And so planning that fed my subconscious positively, and my expectations were realized.
Well, John, you're really a tremendous inspiration in a lot of different ways, but really from the standpoint of keeping us focused on what we really want, and regardless of what happens to us along the way, one of the greatest lessons you could possibly pass on to anyone to become a great goal achiever in their own right. We've got to take a quick break, but we've got more from John Goddard, the world's #1 goal achiever, so stay tuned. This is TSTN. We'll be right back. This is Vic Johnson. We're back in Goals to Go with John Goddard. John, of the original goals that you have on your list, what's the one big goal that you'd really like to see you achieve before you're through?
I would love to take Carol, my wife, to the North Pole one year and the South Pole the next year.
Awesome.
And that's really deeply embedded in my psyche. I've been to the Arctic Circle. I've never gotten to the pole. I've been to Stewart Island in New Zealand, which is within the Antarctic Circle, but I've never been to the poles.
Fantastic. Well, you know, I know you started as a young person, and I know there are going to be a lot of young people watching this, and I know a lot of parents of young people watching this. You know, if you're speaking directly to a young person today, what's the 3 or 4 things as a teenager or a young adult that they need to focus on that they can, so that they will end up living a great life of texture and experiences instead of a life of regret?
That's a marvelous question. And I would say, if I could leave one important thing is the most valuable, important, fulfilling, productive goal they could ever have, the most marvelous investment they can ever make is not in real estate, it's not in metals or antiques or anything like that. It's in themselves, in their culture, their education, in their development, mentally, physically, spiritually. All those things pay off in the long run if you need a materialistic payoff. And then to plan their lives to a point where every day is an adventure, where they're achieving and growing every day, because there's no status quo in the universe. Nothing is quite the same from day to day. You're either progressing or retrogressing, either going forward or you're going backward, mentally, physically, spiritually.
So a young person out there today who's not sure of themselves, who wasn't the product of a great support net like you were with your parents, what do you say to that person who...
Get away from the dread spectatoritis where they're watching things they should be doing. Get off the couch, get off the bleachers, get down on the playing field and experiment and try new things, and get into a profession that will give them enjoyment. So every Monday morning, wait, I've got another week to do, instead of, oh, Monday. You know, get into things. I usually get the fact that they want a good profession that'll pay them a good retirement, a good medical plan, a good income. Well, what about the enjoyment of what they're doing, where they're every day challenged and they're growing?
Well, you have really, really shed a lot of light on the goal-achieving process today. I want to thank you for that. But before we go, I really want to tell people about your book, because I enjoyed it as much as reading a suspense novel, because it seems like on every page there's something to make you want to turn to the next page. It's called The Survivor. And I know people can purchase it at Amazon. They can go to their bookstore. And if it's not at your bookstore, order it. But definitely pick up this book, because not only is it a great read, but some great goal-setting principles and goal-achieving principles. But John, tell us a little bit about the book and a little bit about the cover. I know there's some things on the cover that...
Well, the book incorporates 24 spine-chilling adventures on the edge of death, where these experiences were life-threatening, where if I had not been a little lucky and able to hold my breath or move fast, I would not be sitting here with you. And the illustrations are marvelous. We have 24 color plates alone and 19 black and whites that, you know, frame each story so that people can visualize it a little more. And it seems to appeal to anyone who's interested in adventure, nature, kayaking, Africa, travel. You know, it's a diversification from 8 to 80 or older or younger. And it makes great bedtime stories for parents that want to give their kids a little excitement before they go to sleep.
Fantastic. Well, John, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you joining us and sharing your wisdom and being such a great inspiration to us. We've really enjoyed having you on here today, and we've enjoyed having you with us today. Thank you for watching, and you've got your goals to go. It's time to go, and this is Vic Johnson. Thanks.